It's happened again. The pile has accumulated, and that means I am here to film a book haul. Let's get on with it then, shall we? The first book I did buy myself, and that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Yes, I finally picked this book up, and no, I have not read any Daphne du Maurier yet. So people have been raving about this book for decades. I mean, it's a pretty popular modern classic. It was first published in 1938, and since the beginning of BookTube, I feel it's also been raved about online. But the person that I have to say convinced me to finally pick it up is Lauren from Lauren in the Books. If you watch her videos, you will have heard her rave about this book, no doubt. It was one of her favourites of last year, and her enthusiasm for it just made me feel I needed a copy. I believe her work are kind of gothic parodies, and in this story, our protagonist, who goes unnamed I believe, marries a man who has a deceased wife called Rebecca, and Rebecca's memory and spirit seems to linger in the household. There are secrets about the woman's past that make our protagonist's new wedded life a little less blissful than hoped for, and I'm super intrigued. I don't know what becomes of this mystery, but by the sounds of it, it's a real page turner and I cannot wait to get to it. The next book I got at the Costa Book Awards, which I went to with my friend Jen, who was one of the Poetry Award judges, and we got a book to take away at the end, and I was really pleased with the one I received because it was actually one of the winners intrigued me the most. Other than the poetry book, which was Alice Oswald, and this was the winner of the Children's Costa Prize, and it is The Bombs That Brought Us Together by Brian Conahan, and this I think is set in this fictional town which seems to be under military rule. It's impoverished and under forced curfews, and there's lots of gun violence, and it's about a little boy that lives in this town who becomes friends with a little refugee boy that moves into this town. It sounds like a truly amazing children's book, one that deals with incredibly serious and important topics, and I love books that do that for children and make that kind of stuff accessible, because children do actually experience a lot of these incredibly serious and unfortunate circumstances, so why should only adults read about them? The next book I was sent by Faber, and I'm so excited to pick this one up. I think it's going to be the next poetry book I pick up after I finish the one I'm reading just now, which is Black Cat Bone by John Burnside, and that is Stranger Baby by Emily Berry. Emily Berry just constantly gets praised, and I have been wanting to try some of her poetry for ages. I did have another collection of hers, but I only received it a couple of weeks before I moved down to London, and I didn't bring pretty much any of my books to London with me other than uni ones, so I didn't get a chance to read it, but now I have her new collection and I can't wait to read it. Her first collection won the Forward Prize, and according to the inside flap it says that this is a book of mourning, recrimination, exhilaration and oceanic feeling, a meditation on a want that can never be answered. Can't really say more because I've not read them yet, but can't wait to. The next two I picked up in W.H. Smith in Gatwick Airport because I had some time to kill and they had buy one get one half price, so I was convinced, and I finally picked up The Sellout by Paul Beattie, which was the winner of the Man Booker Prize from last year, 2016, and all I know about this is that the narrator decides to reintroduce slavery and segregation at his high school. I get the sense that there's some elements of dark humour in here whilst dealing with obviously very serious topics and making commentary on them, and it did win the Man Booker, and I really enjoyed the 2015 Man Booker Prize winner. And then the second book I got in that deal is The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. Susan Hill is an author I've been meaning to try it for ages. She's a modern horror author, although I believe this story has a period setting. You're probably familiar with it either through the stage show or the film with Daniel Radcliffe. I have not seen either, so I haven't had the plot spoiled for me, thankfully. And it's really short, so I'm hoping to get to this one really, really soon. And it's described on the front as the classic English ghost story. And the next two were sent to me by Rose, who works at Bonnier and actually has a YouTube channel, which I'll link down below. Rose is absolutely fantastic if you haven't checked her out before. But she thought I might like this book as its sequel's coming out, so she sent me the first one and the sequel. And the first one is Sophia Khan Is Not Obliged by Yisha Malik, and you might have heard of this because this was one of Lena from Just Kiss My Frog's absolute favourite books of 2016 again, so I'm so intrigued to read this. It's about a young woman who writes a dating column for a newspaper or a magazine, and she's also Muslim, and it tackles the Muslim dating scene as well as just this main character's life. I've heard it compared to Bridget Jones, and it just sounds like really good fun and like something I've not picked up in a while, but I'm now really excited to. And like I said, I also have the sequel, which is a proof copy, this one, and it's called The Other Half of Happiness. So I'm not going to read the back because I don't want to spoil what happens at the end of this one, but I'm definitely going to get to this one ASAP. I was then sent a book by Vintage, which is one of my most anticipated books of 2017, and that is Ashland and Vine by John Burnside. This is a proof copy here, but the finished thing will look like what this cover looks like. And I love John Burnside, you know this. I have read some of his other novels and really enjoyed them, and Jen and I actually went to go and see him talk like a fortnight ago, and he was talking about this book and his new poetry collection, and he was just amazing, and it got me all the more excited to read this. This is about a young woman who is a film student, and she is working on a project her boyfriend is doing, and ends up meeting this woman who she would like to learn more about and share her life story for the film they're making, but the woman makes a deal with her that she'll only tell her stories about her life for every day that our main character is sober, because she has an alcohol addiction problem. I was already excited for this book, but seriously, after hearing John Burnside speak, I'm just all the more excited. And then the other non-fiction book I have is Doing It by Hannah Witton. I'm sure you're all familiar with Hannah Witton. She has a YouTube channel where she talks about sex and a lot of other topics as well, but that is the topic of this book. It is all about, well, doing it. It covers topics including STIs, contraception, sexual pleasure, masturbation, virginity, healthy relationships, consent. A really good all-rounder, and one of Hannah's like main goals is to kind of break down the stigma about talking about sex and encourage people who want to talk about sex to talk about sex, and to talk about it in a really positive, informative way that helps break down a lot of the misconceptions and then misunderstandings that happen, and bad sexual practices. So I think more books like this is definitely a good thing, so really pleased to have a copy of it. And last but certainly not least are two books that I got in the most recent Moth Box. Now Mothbox is a bookish subscription service that Mercedes over at Mercy's Bookish Musings runs, and each month you get two books that she's specially selected, and like Mercedes puts in so much work into picking these books, and she also has amazing taste that you're getting something pretty special, and they're also all from independent publishers. So I did buy this box myself, Mercedes didn't send it to me, and I'm so glad I did because both of these books sound amazing. But if you've ordered a box and haven't opened or received it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, I just thought I'd warn you now. These are the last two books in the haul, so you can just click off if you don't want to see them. The first one is The Handsworth Times by Sharon Dougal, and this is published by Blue Moose, and it's set in the 1980s in Thatcher's Britain, in an area I believe is heavily reliant on industry and is suffering massive factory closures, and it deals with the rise of the National Front, which are a fascist organisation in Britain, and it's about a real family living in this time as riots begin to spring up, and I believe it starts with the father, Mukesh Agarwal. This sounds amazing. I am so excited for this, and I'm so thrilled that Mercedes picked it. Equally, the second one I was so happily surprised by, and that is Sufficient Grace by Amy Espeth, and this is published by Scribe. This is about two cousins who live in rural Wisconsin in an isolated religious community, when it turns out one of the cousins has a secret and everything's thrown out of kilter. The back suggests there's lots of nature imagery and themes of nature. It just sounds really interesting, and I can't wait to see what is inside this one. But those are all the books I have to show you today. Such an interesting selection. I cannot wait to get started on some of them. But do let me know if you have any thoughts on any of the books I've mentioned today, and I hope you're all having a lovely day. Until next time guys, happy reading. I'll see you all again soon. Bye!